We've got a timeout now, and so we have another interview here at IRI Live. Very happy to be joined by the head coach from Team 118, the Robonauts, and a robotics engineer at NASA. Lucien, welcome.
Thank you very much, Colin. Thank you, Danny, for having me. This is exciting, to say the least. Amazing.
And that's coming from a guy that just won Einstein. So, Danny?
All right, so I've got to read the stat line because it is so impressive, and I want to make sure I get it right. But in the last 5 years, Robonauts have been to 15 regionals, won 13 of them, including 9 straight from 2013 through 2015. So what is it about your process or the things that your team does to have that kind of success out on the field?
Wow, Danny, that's a load. First and foremost, we have a lot of help from friends, a lot of help from alliances. But on the Robonauts, we concentrate on 3 basic things. We concentrate on the robot, we can concentrate on robot drivers, and we concentrate on strategy. So we feel like if we can take those 3 items and get to 80% on each item going into a regional, then effectively we have a chance at winning that regional, especially early on. As the year goes on, we try to take robot, driver performance, and scouting and strategy to a new level, so when we get to championships, we have an opportunity to win at championships. I come from a golfing background. It is no different than drive, chip, and putt. You try to get at a high level of all of them to be good. And robot-wise, we come out the box early in the year. We're developing what we think is a competitive robot, but there's a point where you have to take the robot away from the designers and the builders and give it to the drivers. And then that's where, because the drivers are always behind. They're always about 6 weeks behind. you give them the robot at 6 weeks, and then we start getting that driver going from 2% to try to get it up to 80 or 85. And I think, and then the strategy, and this is where we used to fall short. And we have really gotten good at taking our scouting and our strategy going in that, and that is pre-match strategy every single match. Don't leave a detail uncovered, and try to get that strategy up to 80, 85%. And our students are incredible when it comes to the scouting aspect of it. They embrace it. They spend a lot of time on the internet doing pre-scouting for tournaments and the like, and I think that is what has gotten us to where we are. And we always say we like to, robot-wise especially, we like to stand on the shoulders of giants. I bet you if you map those numbers, they're very close to when we started showing up at IRI and getting invited to IRI and coming here and looking at every mechanism, looking at 67's mechanisms, looking at 1114s. 1114 inspires you with their Auton every year. Mm-hmm. So you know what your goal, you know what your 100% goal is. You're just trying to get to that 85 or 90, and when you get to championships, get to that 90 or 95% level in all 3 areas.
Absolutely. And speaking of students, we actually have one of your students here now.
Oh. Ethan couldn't join us earlier because he was working on the robot. We've been having some gyro problems and some intake problems. Hey,
all right. Well, Ethan, welcome. If you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your role on the team.
Well, I like to work on the robot primarily, so I basically, from start to finish in the design and build process, I try to be right by the robot so that when I'm at an event, at a competition, I know the robot in and out, and I'm ready to fix anything when it comes back from a match broken.
Awesome. So I guess, Lucien, a couple of years ago, you went from being a three-week robot and then your competition robot to making 2 robots in 6 weeks. Does that tie into what you were talking about before?
That ties
to get through the process.
That ties exactly into what I was talking about. Talking about standing on the shoulders of giants. We thought 8 years ago that if we gave the drivers a 3-week robot, we would get the drivers up to speed earlier. But what we found was that 3-week robot could never be turned into a good practice robot. And we looked at the likes of the other good teams, and they were all making kind of two robots side by side. We learned a lot from 148. They were doing that at that time. And so we transitioned to that for the sole purpose of each section, robot, driver, strategy. If we do this, will it make our robot better? Yes. Will it make our drivers behind more? Yes, it will. So now we have to figure out a way to get our drivers up to 80 or 85% after the 6-week build. And it's a give and take. It's a real chess match.
All right. So I guess we'll skip over to our last question here. This year, the Robonauts created an EveryBot with the goal of an affordable, robust, and simplistic robot. This is from your website, that can be built with nothing but basic tools and items found in either the kit of parts or from local hardware stores or specific FRC retailers like Vex or Andy Mark. And you set a budget at $1,000. A couple of questions. Why did your team do this? What did they learn from it? And what feedback have you received? And will you do it again next year?
EveryBot has been wonderful, and we will absolutely do it again next year. We do it for various reasons. One of the main reasons is it helps the community teams with being able to do it on a modest budget. Our budget for our regular robot is a lot more than $1,000, let's put it that way. Then we also take a lot of our freshmen and our mentors that are coming in, and they get to build a first robot that they can just snap and go down to Home Depot and get some parts and get to building, versus with the Robonauts robot, it ends up being, every change on it ends up being 10 engineers standing around and 60 students standing around trying to decide whether to change. So from a student growth standpoint, it is wonderful for the students. We have found it's wonderful. We've had great feedback from the community saying we really appreciate kind of having some mentoring, and that's the best way we've found to mentor the bigger audience than just a couple teams in Houston. We do that also, but that is the crux of EveryBot, and it also one of the big things is we have something called Robonauts Robot Rescue, where our students go in and help at regionals, and we go help teams that come without a robot working, and that same group is very adept at going to help a team and get a robot going real quick. But so between the student growth, community help, and Robonauts Robot Rescue, it is a great program, and we will continue to do it.
Awesome.
And I hope it grows.
Awesome. Yeah, so I guess your team, you mentioned you had about 60 student team members made up of 7 high schools from more than 10,000 students in those 7 high schools. How do you go about selecting students? How do you go from 10,000 down to 60? And maybe Ethan can touch on that.
Can I turn this over to you since you are a student? And let me brag on Ethan. Okay. Ethan is a Vex. He competed in Vex. He competed in Best Robotics, and now he's competing in First. So he's had a history career. So tell him about your growth.
Well, I started out getting into robotics in FLL in elementary school, and that was great. It got me into it got me into First, and that was just my first knowledge of that. And then our team, we try to reach out to elementary schools all the way down to that level, so that kids get involved in engineering as young as possible, so that whenever they get into middle school, they're ready to go into a VEX program. And then whenever they get into high school, and also in middle school, they do BEST. And then in high school, it's VEX, BEST, and then the pinnacle of it all, FRC, where we compete as the Robonauts.
Very nice.
So you can see we have a nice pipeline to recruit from.
I think it's the goal for every FRC team. It's like Little League or any other sport where you start them young, you get them in, and by the time they get to high school, they're really ready to go. Thank you both so much. Congratulations on a really great year. We look forward to seeing your success in the future. Thank you for being
Danny.
here.
Thank you, Colin.
Congratulations, guys.
So we'll go ahead and bring in our next guests. They are 2 employees from First. We've got Jonathan Bryant and Jamie Luce.
How's it going?
Great. How are you?
I'm
super excited. I can't imagine that the matches are going to get any better, honestly.
Thank you so much both for being here from New Hampshire. I guess Jamie, let's start off with you. You're the FRC team advocate. Can you describe your background and your kind of history with FIRST and FRC?
Sure. I coached Team 2648 Infinite Loop from Oakland, Maine, and I got involved in FIRST as a mentor of the team. In 2008 was our first season, and a student asked me, do you want to help me build a robot? And I was like, sure. I had no idea what I was getting into. I'd never heard of FIRST before, and the first time the robot moved, it was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Right.
So I've been running the Robotics Institute of Maine for the last 2.5 years and the RD in Maine, and when the position opened, I was really excited to take it on.
Very nice. And JB, you are the FRC Kit of Parts engineer. I guess tell us a little bit about your background and history with FIRST.
So I joined FIRST in 2008, and I was on Team 1403 Cougar Robotics from Skillman, New Jersey as a high school student. And then I went to college in Philadelphia and mentored them while I was still in college, graduated, and just started working at FIRST and living the dream.
Great. Well, thank you. So, unfortunately, I'm being told that the robots are ready. Are you guys available to come back between semifinals and finals?
Absolutely.
Sure. Okay,
Awesome.
Great. So we'll have them back between semifinals and finals. We've got other questions that we want to talk to them, kind of get their perspective on some things in FIRST. But right now, let's throw it down to Tyler and Dan.